Hey folks, welcome to the live stream. We almost got that cool in terms of cutting in everyone. Let's just, first of all, I always have to do this thing where I check the chat to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Do give me some feedback on the levels. I got some feedback saying we were a little quiet last time, so we're a little hotter now. If it's too much, let me know. Anyway, welcome once again from beautiful Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville, where you might have heard that we welcomed in our New Year or our Christmas a little strangely this year. Some guy decided apparently he just wasn't going to take it anymore, and about 1 in the morning went downtown Nashville with an RV loaded up with something that went boom. Parked honestly exactly where I park every single time I go down to Nashville, because it's the first place and you can actually find decent street parking. And put out an announcement saying everyone clear the area. Apparently, either played an alert, a recording of gunshots, or fired a gun into the air to draw police around. Let them evacuate people. Played a countdown saying "Get out, get out, get out, get out" for a while. Played the song "Downtown" by Petula Clark, and then blew the whole dang thing up. So luckily nobody got too badly hurt. A couple of cops got bumped around, but no one. A lot of property damage. And if you were out in the Bay, not the Bay Area, but in the Nashville area, and you were on AT&T or an associated network, your internet probably got knocked out for a day and a half. 911 was out for days. It was an interesting Christmas. Anyway. All right, so oh wow, and so we got some great folks coming in here. I'm just going to switch over. It looks like we're good. Audio, Orio's audio's on kind of low. I'll give it a little more. Hopefully, is that a little better? I don't want to go too hot on the whole thing because otherwise it gets bad. Maybe I could just get a little closer to the microphone. All right. All right. So let me switch over here. Hide the windows I use to get everything started and get down to business. H2R, where are you at, my friend? All right. Excellent. Chat. And we are good to go. All right. So let's see. Greg asked, "Anyone get anything really good this year?" I'm gonna wait to see what everyone else's answers on that for that one. We wound up over in the Bickford household. I wound up getting a smoker for the first time. I got it, weeks ago when it went on sale after Black Friday because my wife couldn't hide it. It was big and heavy, and she needed help unloading it from the trunk and everything. So it's like, hey, Merry Christmas! So I got a chance to actually try it out a couple times. It's smokers are fun. You really got to plan your way around them though. They don't take that much time to do stuff, but man, you gotta have everything planned out a day or 2 days in advance before you get going on them, because the cook time is so long. It's delicious when it's done, but and they don't take a lot of watching. Just cycle through new wood chips and just I've got an electric one, so it maintains temperature for me automatically. I just gotta get it all lined up, but the food's terrific. And as it turned out, another thing that was fun over the Bickford household on Christmas Day is in the middle of Christmas dinner. We had the roast in, and about an hour into the cook and everything, the oven just decided I don't feel like being in an oven anymore. And so after a bit of scrambling, we fired up the smoker, and 2 hours later, or 2 or 3 hours later, we actually had a fully cooked Christmas dinner. Anyway, I hope your Christmases were a little less eventful than mine. Well, actually, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about one final Christmassy note. So it wasn't all just explosions and blown up ovens over here in Nashville. One tradition I do with my family every year is, and it started when 30 years ago when my wife and I we just bought a house. We had like 83 cents left to our name, and so her big present to me for that Christmas was a rental from Blockbuster from The Longest Day, a World War II movie. So but in order to dress it up, she basically came up with a little puzzle where, in order to find the present, I had to solve some codes and and do a little hunt around the house to solve various puzzles. You think about like a light duty escape room in order to find things. It's like, oh, that was really fun. And the next year I did it for her, and then we went back and forth. And then these things in over 30 years have gotten more and more involved, to the point where I'm sweating what this puzzle will be for weeks ahead of time to try to figure it was. It was my turn to do the puzzle for us. Anyway, so the other thing that happens over time is there's different players. So I had children. The children got older. They wanted to play too, and they all have different levels that they can participate at different times, and they'll be interested in different things. So it started out we'd have things like when our kids were very young and had little toy pianos and stuff like that. You have instruments you can bang out on, that sort of thing, that we would have as young parents. As they got older, there would be like cryptograms and ciphers and all sorts of things like that. This year, my wife has been learning to play guitar. I gave her one of the puzzles was the guitar tab for the main riff on "Smoke on the Water," and then that ironically was there to lead her to the present for. Lead her to the smoker, which, before I knew it was going to be shoved into use on Christmas Day, I'd use as a present hiding location for different things. Anyway, the other new member of my family this year is we have a dog. We have a lovely Bernese Mountain Dog named Dodger, and I thought, well, just for fun, wouldn't it be kind of cool if once I set up all the different places you've got to run to find all the, solve all the clues and find everything, wouldn't it be fun if I took a whole bunch of bacon, put it in the bottom of a brewing sock that I use for making beer, and basically walked the entire trail with this bacon dripping along the ground in the bottom of this brewing sock, and then if everyone gets stuck, they can't solve the puzzles, in theory, Dodger might be able to help. And it blew my mind. My wife's guitar had gone horribly out of tune. She couldn't figure out the riff. She's not, super great at reading tab. And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. It sounds familiar, but I can't really place it. And she got frustrated, and eventually she's like, well, everyone's been blowing off Dodger. It's like, how Dodger can't. I was like, you can try it. And he just ran straight to the final prize location, ran from that, sniffed around, ran straight over to the smoker. It's like, he must be able to just see the sense. It was actually kind of amazing that worked. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys also had a great time. So anyway, let's get into a little bit of chats, and then we'll do what we came here for. So thank you for listening to my Christmas stories. All right, so wow, we've got folks. Oh, we got snow in Quebec. Andre, welcome. Glad you made it to the show, man. Let's see here. Sydney, Australia. Hey, Craig. Great to hear from you. And Oro from Minneapolis, man. It's got to be cold as heck out there. I grew up in Minneapolis, man, and you get that lake effect going on there, and oof, especially in February, man, that place can get freaking cold. All right, and now the audio is too loud. Dang it, man. All right. Oh man. All right. I'm gonna come down off the volume now. So okay, fine. All right. Can't please all the people all the time. All right. Both were already at 100%. All right. I don't know what to tell you. Hey, Scott got a new guitar, man. What kind did you get? Because I'm turning into a guitar, junkie. I mean, I get why people collect lots of guitars, but I'd be curious. Okay, Craig says, how do I search for missing cover dates? Interesting question. What I would probably do, because the real question is, this is in ComicBase, is it a missing cover date or is it a null cover date? So I would probably, I think I would actually have to try two things. One is you could do find cover date is less than 1/1800 and see if that gives you what you want. If that doesn't give you what you want, and if it doesn't, what will the reason will be because the cover date isn't blank, it's null. Two weird concepts in computers. One means, I don't see anything there. The other one means, like, no, there's the presence of nothingness there. And they have very strange effects to the way that the rules of searching go. Probably what I would do, and if I wanted to take the easy way out on this whole thing, just do a find on like all comics, just view it in the grid, make the grid as big as it can possibly be, and then just hit the sort button for cover date, and all the ones that don't have a cover date will go to the top. That's if I just want to solve the problem in 2 seconds. There's probably a cooler way to go about it, and if Steve Dazinger's on the podcast, he would know exactly the right sort to go for that whole thing. You also, if you wanted to, could go into the advanced find, and if you just said find, assuming the cover dates aren't just out of, that a blank cover date isn't just simply less than, say, 1800, that is actually null. You can actually say find items where cover date is null, and that will give you the list of null cover dates, which should be the ones you're looking for. Happy to go into this one later in more detail if you need help on that. Oh, and of course, Steve Dasner's right next to it in the whole thing. Oh man, John got a Steve Rude sketchbook. Sweet. Okay, so Dynamic Comics says, do you think you'll ever have a Mac version instead of going through Microsoft on the boot camp? Will you have this, and will you have the scanner app? Thanks. Very popular question. I would very much like to have a Mac version. I was making a lot of progress in rearranging all the chessboard pieces to enable a Mac version when we did ComicBase 2020, because we switched the database to SQLite, which is a database format that Macs can read, and we also switched the entire architecture of ComicBase to be built on something called .NET. It's the underpinnings for basically everything modern in Microsoft is built on this, but more importantly, for our purposes, .NET has been open sourced by Microsoft so that you can actually write versions of it that run on through a tool called Xamarin. You can run versions of it that run on Macs and other platforms. So it was looking like, wow, okay, all I got to do is make a Mac version of the interface, and then in theory we could have one code base that will get us everywhere. And that was looking really good, and I was thinking, hey, this would be a good project to take on pretty soon now that we've handled all the big getting started problems with moving over to the new architecture in ComicBase 2020. And then and then Apple decided, hey, let's switch processors and make our own silicon. And so I'm going to have to do some digging and see what it looks like to have to see what is possible in terms of moving that forward. I gotta say, at the minimum, it was a setback. So I don't know. It's something we would like to do. The limits of that are we are a small company. We are not thousands of programmers, like eBay has sitting around, where they can afford just to throw 150 guys on making the checkout process of the eBay store a little smoother, which they actually have numbers like that to throw at these problems. No, I'm the programmer is me. You're looking at them. I occasionally will bring in other folks to do specialty items for areas I don't know that much about. But in terms of being able to support and do all the stuff in ComicBase from a technical end, it's got to be something I can manage. And I am pretty full up with the load we've got going right now. So I have to make anything that gets me over to the Mac has to be something that I can support out of one code base. I can't take on an entirely dissimilar code base. And the way Mac programming has been for the last several years is that it's all written in a completely different language or the completely different everything. And so you'd be writing two versions of the same program, very, very dissimilar to each other, and it's something that just, I don't know how we can make that economically happen. Because as much as we love all you Mac users, there aren't enough of you to hire the staff it would take to make it all come to pass and keep supporting it. The only way we're ever going to make that happen is if we can somehow make it so most of the code is shared between the Mac and the PC. So anyway, that's the very long answer to the whole thing. We keep trying. We keep edging toward it, but it's still a goal. There's another way we might be able to skin this particular one is as we look into things to do in the future, we might look at what it would take to do some kind of cloud-enabled, lighter version of ComicBase. So there are certain things that the web isn't super great at. Printing comes to mind. So if you want to print labels, the web, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a good solution, including the UPSs for that. But for many things, especially if you just want to enter some comic books, look at your comic books, there is a potential that we could do some kind of cloud-enabled version of the software in the future, if that's something we decide to pursue. And if so, then obviously it renders the Mac versus PC issue moot for those capabilities. Very, very difficult, though, having something that's as rich and full-featured as ComicBase and translating up to the web. You give up a lot going to those platforms, even when you have vast teams of folks. Think about someone like QuickBooks to throw at the problem. So, there are many things we can get into in the next year, and we'll talk about those in a future show. But that's another way that this particular cat might conceivably get skinned. Okay, Let's go here. Guys, get a t-shirt, backpack, Prince. Happy New Year, Pete from Troy. Thank you very much for that. Smoke. Yes, exactly. Scott, Smoke on the Water is exactly the first song that every rock guitarist is required to play, because if you play it on the A string, it's just the open note and then 3 6 8. Was it 3 6 5? Open note 3 5, open note 3. 6, slide down to 5, and then repeat. So it's bum 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 bum. So it's like 4 notes in the main riff, and they're stupidly easy to play. So yeah, and you can sound badass in about 3 minutes. So that is what guitarists need. All right, let's see here. I got the Ibanez JS1000. Sweet, dude, that sounds awesome. All right. Okay, so let's see here. Do I think the value Darth Tragic Darth Tragic? I'm guessing Tragic 666 says, "Do you think the value of existing print comics will go up with things happening like DC cutting their titles and possibly getting out of the printing books altogether?" We're going to talk about that in a bit. Answer is short version, yes. Long version, to come. Gergie says, I remember in college, everyone who had an electric guitar had to learn to play the riff from Money for Nothing, and now I feel really bad. I'm gonna have to bust out my Paul Reed Smith and figure that one out, out right after the show. All right, let's see here. Arun says, for the next Arun, I think I got your name right this time. For the next version, please add in preferences for search to have the list only items in stock checked as default. I believe it remembers your setting on that from the previous setting. If it doesn't, send me a quick note to support@comicbase.com. That is a really, if it doesn't remember your setting on that one, that'd be a great preference to automatically add in, and we should do that. And on the message boards, Mark says, we're for that suggestion of the program team. There's no bullpen of programs at HC. Mark was lying to us. No, it's not that. It's basically it comes down to he's going to run it past me. I'm going to say, well, what's it going to take to do that? If it's something I can do easily, then it gets done. If it's something where like I'm going to need to hire someone to bring in a specialized skill to make that happen, then that gets done. A lot of times they feel like they're a program suggestion, but they're really a program plus a content suggestion, which then gets into the editorial guys involved. So there's a lot of complicated foo involved with numbers of suggestions. So even if you say things like please make it so that the variants are sorted in such a way or do something like that, if there's an editorial aspect to that, then there's a conference that happens and then we make the whole thing happen. But yeah, for when you boot up ComicBase and it says by Pete Bickford, I'm largely that's largely a deal. But if you go to the help about ComicBase and you look at all the names that were involved, all those guys had something to do with making this whole thing come together, and it's probably about 100 names at this point. So anyway, that's what that is. Okay, so let's see here, and PRSs are nice too. All right, and it doesn't. Okay, all right. Arun, I will try to look into that one. But do me a favor, if you would, send me a note, P. Bickford, and matter of fact, I will hit my first chance to hit the Chiron here. Hopefully this will work. It didn't work. No, the Show Pete Chiron button. You're letting me down, man. All right, I don't know what's going on with that one. Anyway, if send a note to pbickford@human-computing.com, and I will, it'll sit in my inbox, and it will bug me until something gets done with it, and that way I will not forget. Because I'm going to if you guys have ever gone to a trade show, and you meet, like, hundreds of people in the course of a day, and you'll have talks with them, and they'll be like, hey, make sure you send me this, make sure you do that, or else, and you'll say, absolutely, and you will mean it. And by the end of the day, you will remember, man, I talked to a lot of people, and they said stuff. And if 3 out of those 100 conversations come back to you in any detail with the jumble that is now in your mind, it's a miracle. So email, super, super good for helping me just as a mental aid keep it all straight. Because one thing about my emails is until they get dealt with in one fashion or another, I tend to just kind of sit in my inbox. I've gotten really big in this last year about just clear the damn inbox at the end of the day, which is not throw it away. It's just deal with everything that needs to be dealt with so that I come in tomorrow and I don't have hundreds of new emails from leftover, because I'm going to have hundreds of new emails just from the normal day. So anyway, that's a thing. Okay. All right, so that was the chat as of a couple minutes ago. Let's get on with the other stuff. So, news. Sorry, brief pause. And yes, this is Sunkissed dyed orange. One thing, by the way, one thing that is really strange about this COVID foo is the fine folks who make Orange Crush. I really, I really am a big fan of the dyed Orange Crush. It's my go-to orange flavored soda-ish drink when I'm not trying to caffeinate myself into oblivion. And they stopped making it. They just it became one of those things that just it was never officially canceled. It's just that they shut down whatever production lines crank it out. So there has been no Diet Orange Crush since the beginning of the pandemic. So I've had to switch to Diet Sunkissed. It's okay anyway, but I just need to drink something then. So okay, so notes for news. So 21.0.1 is coming out in the next couple of days. Main things that are happening with it, and I may possibly we can also flip in the remembers your list only items in stock preference on the find. But there's going to be over 900,000. We'll pass the 900,000 issue mark officially. We are, as of press time, I believe at 990. What is it? 899,588-ish comics in the database as of now. In a couple 3 hours, Mark will have pushed the update for this week, and that should get us well over the 900K mark. And so then everything's happy, and I get to update the website and change the almost 900,000 to say over 900,000. I feel a little better. We passed over 675,000 covers a long time ago. I'm looking to do, in addition to that, some tweaks for small monitors. One thing that I've seen over the last several days in particular is a lot of people got ComicBase for the first time, or they got it for Christmas or whatever else, and for some reason it seems like everyone who calls me for tech support that I have to remote in with is always running it on a laptop with a really small monitor. And as a result, you kind of like the view from a 768 pixel tall laptop is not great. It's technically it's under spec for what we say the system requirements are, although it's still a screen size that a lot of people have, especially if they have older laptops. They don't have the really resi ones, but even then, it's like the vertical space on a laptop is really precious, and I think it'd be nice of us to do some tweaks to the program to make it so that if it sees you have a really small monitor, that it tries to automatically adjust some defaults in a way that we wouldn't normally choose them for larger monitors. So, the regular ComicBase is assuming you've got a monitor that's about 1080 pix high, basically a standard desktop monitor. For myself right now, I've got a 4K monitor on one side of my screen. I've got a 1920 by 1080 monitor on the other side, and I'm always swapping back and forth to see how things look. But my baseline for does this look good, is does it look good on my 10,080 pixel tall monitor? It isn't, if you take 200 pixels away from that, suddenly a lot of things that look pretty good are like, yeah, this is really just dominating the screen, or it's really barely fitting on the screen, or in a couple of rare circumstances, depending on how you've got different parts of your Windows interface sized, it may even be fighting for position with your taskbar for space on a couple dialogues. Now, Grant, we have some very involved amounts of data we want to show, so something has to give. It's always a question of how much data can I show comfortably, and how do I make it so it looks really good on a big guy's monitor versus a small monitor. But I think there's probably room for us to take a pass at changing up some of the layouts and modernizing, or modifying some of the default, let's say, icon settings and things like that, if we detect that you're on a smaller monitor, at least as an initial set, that might make some people happier. Because and I'll get into some of the setup stuff later on. But anyway, I'm looking to see if we can't get some of that working in the 1901 update. So the 21.0.1 update. So the 21.0.1 update, again, it'll be coming out before we talk next time. So before next Wednesday. And at that point, what I'm hoping happens is we take care of that little shopping list of items. It will be a forced update, which means everyone who's had any version of ComicBase since we shipped back around Thanksgiving will automatically get updated to that one if you've been checking for updates, and it'll force the update before you download the next content update. So it kind of moves the baseline level of ComicBase up to 21.0.1. All right, so that is that. Next, I want to go over, if I could, let me just get in the habit of checking chat in between segments here. Um, John says, update this ComicBase 13.1.16 and both my computers still can't get the screensaver to work. John, do me a favor. I don't know what the nature of it not working on your machine is, but two things I would suggest. One is if it's just not working, the screensaver does require 64-bit Windows. If you're on 32-bit Windows, it will not work. So if that's your deal, and you can do that by checking your system properties. Just go to, let's see if I can demonstrate that. Let me clear down, I'm going to clear down some windows here because I have some things I've queued up to show y'all and I don't want to show them right now. So let me go to System Properties, about your PC. Okay, and I think it's actually not the one I want. Okay, yeah, okay, here we go. So if you go, let's switch over to screen 2. All right, if you go down here and you just type, say, about, sorry, it's auto-completing on my other machine. I apologize for that. But anyway, but if you simply go down to your Windows menu and you say About PC, you'll come to the About Your PC screen, as you see on the monitor right now, or at least which you should see on the monitor, but which for some reason you are not seeing. That's annoying. All right, checking the program switcher. Oh my goodness, don't do this to me, bib. Which monitor do you think? Oh, great. It's convinced that it wants to monitor my third monitor, which is really going to be annoying to demo stuff on, because that's really far off. All right, we're going to work with it right now, because I don't want to restart the whole show. All right. Anyway, so if you go under your About menu here, and then you type About PC, it'll show you the basic information on your PC. Have a look down in this area right here and make sure it says that you're running a 64-bit operating system on your PC. If you're running a 32-bit operating system, I'm sorry, the screensaver won't work on it, but honestly, in this day and age, with computers with more than 4 gigs of RAM in them, you absolutely should be running the 64-bit version of Windows, and you should switch if not. But I mean, the minimum system requirements for ComicBase are a 64-bit operating system at this point. It'll run in most cases on a 32-bit operating system, but one of the things that won't is the screensaver. That would be my first thing. If you're having a different problem, please reach out to me and we'll solve it as best we can. All right, on to other things. So, and this is going to get really interesting and challenging because I got to, so the third monitor, the one that apparently it's having me demo things on right now, is mapped to, apparently my video switcher decided it was going to map it to the monitor I use for the chroma key, which is just kind of a nightmare right now. So that's, I'm going to have to see if I can make that work a different way, because I don't know how to make this work without you seeing everything really horribly green and without me seeing everything in about a 3-inch square at the right of my computer, which honestly is not going to work for me doing anything fine. So give me just a moment. I am going to be pulling a plug or two, and if we lose the signal, we'll be right back. But I'm going to see if we can't make this happen. So I go to display settings here. 3 and 4 is my middle one. Okay, and the second one is there. Yeah, that's... Ugh. Okay, this could get a little rough. I'm not sure... Okay, yeah, sorry about this, guys. I'm going to have to yank my second connection. I'll be right with you. Alright, well that made everything far worse. So, sweet. Wow, this is going really well. So, camera 1 is now not switching to program anymore, and good grief almighty. Alright, Hello and welcome to Resetting the Switcher. I'm about to lose y'all. I'll see you. All right. Hopefully we're back. Anyway. Oh my goodness, guys. Welcome to live broadcasting. We'll see how this goes. Anyway, let's hope for the best and deal with what we got in terms of the rest of it. All right, I'm gonna pull the chat back up so I can see what we're doing here, and we're gonna continue on with the show because that's how we roll around here. Okay, H2R, come back to me, baby. All right. Okay, and Greg says, yes, if you have something you're not sure about, you can always post a question to the boards. Yes, absolutely. Strongly encouraged. All right. Dragging my Chroma back over to the Chroma monitor, and then hopefully we can see what we're doing. At some point, I don't know if you guys be interested in this. You know, it's interesting to me, at least, if you guys wanted to do like a behind the scenes to see what some of the video switching foo that goes on behind all this is. It's you know, it's technically it's kind of interesting, at least to me. So all right, we'll take that from where we're at. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. All right, so questions we had here from chat. Two-bit screen share is great. Okay, let's see here. Both 64-bit. Okay, John. Yeah, if you're still having issues, just get in touch with us over support at ComicBase.com. We'll be happy to help you out with that as best we can, and see if we can't get something going for you on that. And I just lost the program feed again. Wow, this is really getting strange. So, okay. All right, some of the special effects are maybe not going to be here this time. We're just going to roll. All right, so have I got this on monitor 2? Oh, good grief. Okay. All right, no, we're moving on. All right, so one of the things I had promised to tell you guys about last time out, which I did not get a chance to talk to you about, was I promised you guys Christmas advice. And other than babbling on about how we're doing a holiday sale, which by the way is still going on, and you still get a couple days to get on it. So if you haven't updated your ComicBase this year, now is an excellent time to do it. But other than that, there are a couple kind of really neat deals going on in the world. I just wanted to mention to you because they do I just thought they were pretty cool. One of them is, and unfortunately I lost my ability to show you cool graphics of this just now, but one of them, if you guys are at all gamers, or if you have a gamer in your life. So as you guys all know, games are getting more and more subscription based. It's like as much as Amazon or Microsoft, or Microsoft or PlayStation, or as much as they're happy for you to go down to GameStop and buy a copy of whatever software it is and do that, they're even happier if you buy it straight over their online store. And they're really, really happy if they can sell you essentially inventory games that were hot a couple of years ago, which have been kind of not selling all that well, but still were like AAA games. They cost millions of dollars to develop. They were really pretty cool. Just you maybe didn't get a chance to play them a couple of years ago, but now might be your chance. And if they do that, then the money goes straight to them, especially if they came out of the Microsoft game studios or or the Sony game studios and not through third party. Anyway, with that in mind, both Microsoft and Amazon have, Microsoft and PlayStation have introduced their own Game Pass, type of plays, where basically for a certain amount per month, you can have a library of 100 or so, either they were AAA games from a couple years ago, or they were AA games. They're still pretty cool. In many cases, some really cool indie games. And you can just basically, it's an all-you-can-eat model. You can just play them as much as you want. You can, download them to your machine. You can play, to play them to death, no cost to you other than the monthly subscription, and you move on. Now, as you may have remembered from previous episodes, I very much am a fan of having physical media in my life because I hate it when people have the ability to disappear material on me without just their license ran out or whatever else, or just attitudes towards something or other changed and suddenly Gone with the Wind suddenly becomes a controversial movie or something. I like the idea of just like, no, I bought the movie, I get to play the movie. I bought the game, I get to play the game. Anyway, so I'm not naturally warm to this. That said, there is a price at which I'm sitting there going, I'll give it a go. Now, that price from normally, I believe the Microsoft Game Pass costs something like $14.99 a month. And I'm like, I don't know, man. That's a little steep for me. I'm not sure if I want to lay out that kind of dosh to, to play games, especially if they kind of, they come, they go, whatever else. That said, they have another model called Microsoft Live, which is for basically $5 a month. You can get access to a smaller number of games, usually one or two freebies a month, but it's kind of like the minimum you need in order to play multiplayer and do some of the extras on the Microsoft system. And there's a similar one for PlayStation. Now, I can't speak for PlayStation, but the Microsoft, there is an angle you can play in it right now, and it was a little cooler. If I could, if I thought to tell you this, 2 weeks ago, there's a little cooler in that you can sometimes find a sale on the 12-month Microsoft Gold memberships. So instead of them being $5 a month, it wound up being like $4 a month. Anyway, the angle on that is this: you can buy up to 3 years of a Microsoft Gold membership. So think about your spend is $180. And at the moment, they've got a deal where you can convert that for $1. You can convert and roll over any Microsoft Gold membership you've got into a Game Pass Unlimited membership. So suddenly you go from the, hey, I paid $5 a month to just play multiplayer games with buddies once in a while, to suddenly I can play all these AAA games, Red Dead Redemption, Control, the Battlefield series, etc. I can play all those for the same $5. And because what I'm doing is I'm rolling over my Microsoft Gold subscription, I got 3 years of this paid for as little as, had you caught the sale for as little as $150, now it's be as little as $180. But basically it goes like this. Go to someplace, Amazon.com, Newegg, whatever else. Buy yourself one of those 12-month membership cards from Microsoft Gold and basically get 3 of them because the maximum is 3 years. All right, so now you got $180 into the game. Spend $1 more going to the Microsoft console site on your game browser, and say, yeah, I'd like to try Gold Pass Ultimate. And it says, well, for $1 you can roll over your membership, and we give you a month. Now you're never going to get that month because you'll have already loaded up with 3 years worth of gold, a membership, which is the maximum. But what you'll magically find out at that point is that once you've redeemed your 3, 12-month codes, for the gold membership, so you've got your 3-month gold membership stacked up in your account, you spend the $1 to turn it into a Game Pass Ultimate account, and now suddenly you've got 3 years of Game Pass Ultimate for the same $180. That is a freaking sweet deal. Anyway, if you guys have a look at the Microsoft.com account on your Xbox for this one to look at it, it is, you can't beat this deal. It's got Outer Worlds, again, I mentioned Control. It's got more games that I'm going to be able to play in the next 3 years out there already. I understand they just put Sea of Thieves out there and so forth. It is a cool deal. I don't know of anything similar for PlayStation, so if all you've got is a PlayStation, I can't help you out on that one. But if you like games at all, that I think is the secret deal of the season for me. All right, let me see how we're doing chat-wise, and we'll take it from that. Let's see here. Okay. Yes, Livestream Meltdown. Last show was 2020. Seems kind of symbolic. Yeah, pretty much. All right. Oro says, still running 2017 Director's Cut Edition. Oh, for good lord, dude, get up to date. If I have a Christmas wish to give to the world is, for Lord's sake, get off of the old code base of ComicBase. Man, we were holding that sucker together with duct tape at the end, and it was. I mean, it's like it's we were working so hard to keep everything within that 2 gig limit. There's constant compacting that you have to do with all this stuff. And then when we moved over to 2020 and we had the brand new database, the brand new code base and everything is just so much faster and better. Please, I beg of you, get upgraded. You will be very happy. Anyway, should you upgrade to the news 2020 directly from 2017? Yes. And if you do that, it'll automatically carry your data straight forward. So yeah, grab a hold of the sale prices on that one. It'll upgrade you straight from where you are to the new version, and you'll be golden. You will thank me. All right. So Andre says no gamer here. All right, that's cool. All right. Let's see here. Jeff says that's dang, it's a good deal. What were they thinking? I may have to look into that. Yeah, no, it's this one. It required so much like people just working all the angles on the system to have them even point this deal out to me. I couldn't believe it, but that is such a good deal. I'm sure that once the Game Pass thing is more established, they will never ever offer anything like this in the future. But if you have never subscribed, by the way, you can only do this if you haven't subscribed to their Game Pass Ultra before. If you have subscribed to their Game Pass Ultra before, I'd make a whole new account and subscribe to it under the whole new account. It's that good a deal. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Thanks. I play a backup save for me every time. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's Orio's question about the backing up to the new version. I think you'll have no trouble with. But if you do, please give us a call. All right. Back to other things. So I wanted to give some advice to folks who got ComicBase as a new. If Santa gave you ComicBase as a new present under the tree this year. And first of all, let me do a quick time check. That's one of the problems I had with. Okay, we're getting a little late, but I'm going to move this on. If you got ComicBase for a present under the tree this year, some things I'm getting because I'm answering a lot of questions for new users this time of year, and it's good to see what folks who've never seen the program before are thinking, as opposed to people like us who've maybe used it for many years and are kind of used to how everything goes and so forth. But some advice if you're watching this right now and you just got ComicBase, would basically go like this. First of all, the thing I would do with ComicBase is I would set these columns, the columns up in the grid the way I like them. It's going to come with a certain default for which columns you're viewing. Those, so in other words, you see like the price, the issues, the notes, and so forth. Those may or may not be ideal for you. Matter of fact, statistically, they're probably not ideal for you. There may be things you care about more than others. You may want to see certain things like for sale or wanted. You may want to move those to a position that makes them easier to click on and so forth. But the very first thing I think I would do if I were opening ComicBase on a new computer and I hadn't configured it yet is go into the setup menu, go to columns to view, and check, so that basically you've highlighted only the columns you really care about, and go ahead and get rid of anything that's not useful to you and reorder the columns into the order that makes it easiest for you to see the data you want in the smallest amount of screen space. That's probably the very first thing I would do. The second thing I would do, and this goes back to the comment I said earlier about doing like a more laptop optimized view in the future, it's something we'd very much be interested in doing, is if you look between the top of the screen and the bottom and where the grid starts, and the main thing, if you put your cursor right above, and let me see, I think just in resetting this, I think I lost my ability to show the computer. Yeah, I did. I lost the computer feed entirely. Unfortunately, I can't show this to you. This sucks. Anyway, but if you put your cursor right above where the grid is, you'll see that it changes into a line with an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. What that is if you click and drag up or down, you can control what proportion of the screen is devoted to the top of the screen with the header information and how much is devoted to the grid. I would size that to something that is comfortable given your screen size to show the stuff you want. Now, there is a certain minimum you've got to have, which is the minimum we need to do to show you just the basic organizing information for the screen. And there's also a slightly larger amount of screen space required if you ever want to show the issue graph. So if you go under the view menu, and you say include value graph, it will automatically, if that was not checked before, it'll automatically increase that top portion to the minimum required to actually show the value graph. So you can't go, you can go less than that, but it will hide the graph because there's just not room to show it. That said, if I'm doing my data entry for the very first time, I might, and I've seen some people with some very small screens, I might choose to really, really minimize the top portion of the screen so I can see as much of the grid as possible. And that's a sensible choice if you have a very small monitor. The next thing I would do is, again, under the View menu, is I would go down to grid cover icon size, and I would look at the standard is that it uses 48 pixels for each row in the grid to show the cover image. But that's also going to be the height of each row. If, especially like you say, you're running like the Express or the Pro, which don't have a lot of pictures, or you don't need to see the picture very large, but you have a very small monitor, consider moving that up to something smaller, 32, 24, or even, if you need to, none, just so you can see the maximum amount of item information, to get your comics entered quickly. Again, it's one of these things where, like, something has to give. There's only so much room on the screen, and there's a lot of information that wants to fight for it, and it'd be great to see it all. But if you've got a small monitor, you have to make some choices, but do make those choices. It'll remember what you did from time to time, and that'll give you a good boost on getting things rolling. Next point is I want to say is consider getting a barcode scanner. Now, I don't really care whether you buy one from us or not. The only rules on using a barcode scanner with ComicBase are if the barcode is going to faithfully transmit. Let me find a barcode here. Okay, so here's a comic book, right? If it's going to faithfully transmit all the human readable digits you've got right here, especially these ones over on the far right, that's called the supplemental. If it will get those, and hopefully this will focus on that right there so you can see it better, okay? If it gets all the human readable digits and doesn't add anything extra, that barcode scanner is going to work with ComicBase. If you have any doubts about it, honestly, you could do a lot worse than just buy the one from us, especially when they're on sale. I did take a call from someone earlier today who'd bought some other barcode scanner off Amazon, and he had trouble getting it to work because it wasn't transmitting all the digits. Unfortunately, in those cases, as much as I'd like to help him, I can't, because I don't know his scanner, and we can't support other people's scanners because they're not ours. Because it's not that ComicBase is doing anything wrong, it's just that it literally isn't giving us the information. So that's something where I had to refer him back to whoever he bought the scanner from for assistance on that. But anyway, do consider getting a barcode scanner no matter where you get it from, because if you've got comic books after 1992, scanning them with a real barcode scanner, one of these guys, as opposed to trying to type them in by hand or enter them with your phone or whatever you have, is just so much faster. I mean, there's a reason every checkout line you've been into in the last 10 years has been run off of a barcode scanner. I mean, I can't. Has it been 25, 30 years the last time I had someone literally punching in items on a cash register to ring something up? Easily. Now, barcode scanners are just, they're phenomenal for looking up information very, very quickly and getting the comics entered. That said, I don't want to oversell what they do. Prior to 1992, barcodes on comics weren't very good. And from the mid 1980s till 1992, they were kind of spotty. Not only would they do things like reusing the same barcode every 12 months, because typically they would use that supplemental to represent the month as opposed to the issue number, like they did in later things. But the other thing is that the direct market came in with comic books, the direct market being comic book stores. And one of the ways that they would differentiate between a comic that was sold through a comic book store and a comic book that was sold through, say, 7-Eleven, is that they would get rid of or put a line through or do something with where the barcode should have been on that comic book. Usually they put a little picture of Spider-Man there or something else like that. That meant that comic book was sold through a comic store. Well, that's great. I mean, it's still good comic book and everything else like that, but it means that barcodes didn't apply to those comic books. So if all your comic books are prior to 1992, then okay, a barcode scanner may not help you immediately, or at least might not help you in the initial entry of your comics. You can barcode even comics that don't have barcodes. You can print labels in ComicBase with a barcode on them, so that it'll automatically take you straight to that comic later on. But for the main thing that people care about is usually getting their comic books into the system in the first place. If your comic books, a significant proportion, are after 1992, and you have more than like a couple hundred comic books, do yourself a favor, get a barcode scanner. Fourth thing I would say, look at our Getting Started video. If you go in ComicBase and you go under the Help menu, and you go to was it the fourth item down, ComicBase TV, video guides and tips. If you go on that site, you'll see a video from about, I want to say it's about 4 or 5 years ago. It's me demonstrating with an older version of ComicBase. I really do need to update that video, but it's called Pro Tips Number 1, How to Enter Your Comics Quickly. And that will, in about 5.5 minutes, will give you all the basics of moving around ComicBase, getting your books entered and so forth. A couple of the menu item names have changed since that version, but you'll still find the same functions in ComicBase. And that gives you all the basics of like just how to get stuff going really, really quickly, and it does it in like 5 minutes. So if you've never used ComicBase before, do yourself a favor and have a look at that video. And I do plan to update that video in the next year. Next, I'd say check out the ComicBase forums. That's another thing under the help menu. You can go to the ComicBase forums and discussions. It's the last item on that menu. Most people's forums, I don't know, they're a mixed bag at best. The ComicBase forums, I gotta say, thanks to you users, I mean, you guys have a phenomenal, they call it a signal to noise ratio of useful content to just either puffery and fluff or just people trolling or whatever the foo is. The ComicBase forums are amazingly useful and just in terms of just you can find answers to things, just things you couldn't believe there. People are incredibly helpful. I've had people pose weird questions of how to construct certain types of searches, whatever else, and there's a really dedicated staff of folks, some of you are watching the video right now, who are just amazing members of that community who help out, folks who come along and like, giving people a hand and answering questions. Definitely, if you have a look in the forums for your answer there, and also if you don't see an answer, feel free to ask a question. Chances are you'll get an answer, and probably before we wake up in the morning. Next, I'd say subscribe to the live stream. When you went to the ComicBase live stream just now, click that subscribe button and click the little bell so you get notified when we're on the air next time. It helps us in terms of knowing what folks are out there and so forth, and helping us communicate with you guys. It helps you guys get notified when new things come out. But more importantly, let's just say you're just working at your computer someday, or you just need something to keep your mind alive while you're doing something else, in your life. Throw on, live stream stuff like that. You're gonna find out so much weird, random stuff about the program that you didn't know was possible and how to do it. It really does wind up being very instructive, and I think you'll dig it. And finally, never be afraid to ask. We love it when people give us questions. Well, most days. I think yesterday we had some people sick out in the California office, and I had 4 people stacked up in a row on the telephones. I got a little stressed, I'll admit. But in general, it's like, yeah, call us up and call us up. When you're starting to, say, hey, I can't figure out how to get this to work, or I'm having trouble with whatever the thing is. Where else, give us a call. We're happy to help. It's we love hearing from you guys. We learn stuff from you guys, and we want you to have a good time with the program. So please, just reach out. And our number is 408-266-6883. But you also can find us on the website and contact us via phone, email, or if you like, at support@comicbase.com if that's more comfortable for you. All right, let me go back to the chat here. We are starting to round at the point where I want to start pulling into the end here. All right. Holy cow, you guys are chatting a lot. Okay. Greg says, if you have a lot of books there in your database aren't in the master database, rip off that Band-Aid the longer you put off, the greater the pain. Probably so. Okay, so let's see here. Barcast scanners are the bomb, says John. They abso-freaking-lutely are. Troy says, I'm new to ComicBase and I can already say, get the scanner. It's awesome. Okay, let's see. Andre got a new Bluetooth barcode scanner. Very cool. Nice. All right. And, Les, just got my scanner today. Is there a way to mute or drastically reduce the beep? Even the quieter beep sounding is jarring. Yeah, we've got a, there is, out of the box, the manufacturer, they really, really, really wanted you to know that thing had scanned properly, and you can hear the boop from across the house, when anyone's scanning anything. So that's a little much for me. If you look at the third page of the setup, one of the very first things we drilled into is how to make the beep quieter. But you can make it quieter still, and you can get rid of it entirely. To do that, look at the full version of the barcode manual, and you can find that at the support section of our website. Just go under barcode setup. There is a massive, massive manual that comes with each one of the barcode scanners. And basically what you do is you configure any barcode scanner by scanning special barcodes. But yes, there are there are different barcodes settings that you can choose out of the full manual to, I believe, to make it even quieter, but I know certainly to turn it off entirely if you like just having silent scanning. Anyway, so that's the thing. You'll have to, again, drill into the manufacturer part of the manual for that one, but that is available on the website. All right. Let's see here. Okay, some questions about converting. We'll handle that one offline. Let's see, anything else here? Triggers of manual. Do you think I still get the titles not master database report through 2017's director's cut? We are looking at a way of doing the titles not in the master database as a feature in ComicBase. We're going to slip this into some update. Another way of doing it. I think we mentioned this one before. So the idea here is there a way of saying what titles do I have in my personal database that are kind of like independent titles? They don't exist in your master. Now, one way to do it is if you try to post your stuff for sale on Atomic Avenue, it'll tell you, hey, here's a list of ones we've never seen before. But what you really want is you want a list of everything in your database that isn't in something we know. Unfortunately, there's a lot of data involved with that, and it's hard to do as a transaction over the web. So we're looking at different ways of delivering that report back to folks, and I'm looking for some feedback from y'all. Is if we did that one as an automatically generated report whenever you back up your data. So, for instance, whenever you do a save to cloud, and we just happen to put out in your account a report which says, and here's a list of titles that are in your database that we don't know. Does that work for you? Because one thing about doing it there is you can automatically, we can automatically generate it when we're, backing up your data and generating the other reports, and you've already sent us the data, so we don't need to have you send it to us again. If that isn't ideal for you folks, let me know what you think an ideal version of that would be. The problem is we'd like you not to have to send us a whole extract file of your stuff just for us to tell you, yeah, we've never heard of these. That's cumbersome in every sense of the word, and I'm not sure even then, because it's sort of like we send you a big thing and then we have to send you something back. It's a bit hands-off in terms of as a report goes, and it's hard for us to know how to deliver that sort of experience to you. But please, send your thoughts. You can post them in the chat, or as a comment on the live stream, or send them straight to support@comicbase.com. I'd love to hear. All right, and wow, we have a lot of comments today. We got that. Okay, so I think we're going to. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last things I want to say here. Greg, you're going to laugh at me again, but I am going to try to be close at least to end a year in review. All right, so this is going to be the shortest year in review ever. Okay, so guys, 2020 has been interesting. It's like there's a lot of words. Yeah, I come from Minnesota. Interesting is the word we typically use as a synonym for hellish, if you're from the Midwest. But anyway, it's like, hey, how's this casserole that I brought over? Oh, I thought it was very interesting, which basically is Minnesotan for don't you ever bring that to my house again or I'll shiv you. That's Minnesota nice for you. Anyway, 2020, I'm just going to say, yeah, it was interesting in that it certainly it caused us all to adjust, adapt, and overcome a lot. For those of us who managed it, some of the big events, other than COVID, DC left Diamond Comics, and then a month or so later they left one of their two distributors they had used to distribute for them in addition. This. On one hand, it's like, well, what do I care? Batman's coming to my comic shop one way or another. It's a headache for my comic shop guy, right? These headaches have a way of working themselves down the system. Certainly in terms of product delays at the minimum. DC was essentially offline for the better part of a couple months. When Diamond shut down. And nowadays, with the shift over, they're currently carried through a distributor called Lunar Distribution, which has certain minimums. There's some weeks where we don't get our books until the next week because the minimums are so high because they're not shipping enough product for us to buy to hit that minimum. So, I mean, it's a tumultuous time for DC and their relationship with the comic industry. It is probably the gentlest way I can say this. The other thing is your local comic shop, most of them are getting by by the skin of their teeth. I mean, they are dancing so fast to keep the lights on. It's crazy. You sit there and say, "Look, wait, but they're buying it like a 60% markup. They're selling a 60% gross markup. I mean, that's great, right? I mean, surely that should be enough to keep anyone in business." The numbers on comic books and the penalties for ordering wrong, and and just how much intensity it takes of effort and time and capital to keep a comic store open. It's if only there were 20 times the number of us that there are, it'd be an easier business for them. But they're usually store retailers are some of the most driven, creative folks in all of retail that I've ever seen in terms of just what they have to do just to make the numbers work. And you'll probably also notice that most comic stores, just like most comic conventions these days, aren't just comic stores anymore. I don't know the last time I walked into a comic store and I didn't see some kind of gaming or some kind of pop culture, Funko Pops or whatever else in the store as well. They need any source of revenue they can get. And when you take basically a third of the comic revenue out of the comic store for any length of time, or you make it so it could be delayed, or it's harder to get, or anything else like that, man, that's really a blow, and it involves a whole new set of folks to pay. You lose any kind of bulk discounts you used to have with combining orders from different things. There's a lot of inefficiencies with paying twice the shipping to get it from two different sources, and so forth. So yeah, DC leaving Diamond Comic Distribution that was a body blow to the industry. We don't know where they're going. Honestly, DC's been sitting out, and by DC, I shouldn't really say DC. Really, what I'm saying is AT&T, because DC is part of Warner. Warner is part of AT&T. DC is some DC comic sales. I had it in our second live stream. I broke down the numbers, but it's some fraction of a percentage of AT&T's full-on revenue for the year. It doesn't make a single percent. And so, given some of the statements we've heard from the corporate owners of AT&T, you really have to wonder what their commitment to comic stores and comic books sold through comic stores is, as a medium for going forward. It's easy to see they put a lot of money into direct-to-consumer plays. They've done a lot of money to DC subscription services. They did their big, what was it, the DC Dome, whatever what the heck the thing was called this fall. Essentially relaunching their subscription services and so forth. But when you think about the comics as a fraction of both the entertainment properties, the film and TV, and everything else that they bring, the comic book floppies are such a tiny portion of that. And you also see the people that they laid off in the various rounds of reorgs they've had in the whole thing. I gotta say, it gives me pause, and it makes me wonder what it's going to be like going forward in terms of DC's relationship with the industry. I mean, is there going to be a time when the only place that people know Superman from is from the movies or from the lunchboxes or from anything else, but that no one who's doing that will have ever opened up a Superman 32-page comic and leaf through it and actually follow the story? I don't know, man. I gotta say that one's pretty easy for me to see. If so, that's another shock that's waiting for your local comic retail store, and so I mean that's something we got to look forward to and deal with one way or another. By the way, for some perspective on this stuff, I reached out to an old friend of mine, and actually used to be a writer for some of the better written blurbs in ComicBase, written by a guy named Rob Salkowitz, who is currently, he works for Forbes and a number of other places, does a lot of work for ICV2 and so forth, but he's just become an absolute maven for the industry. I reached out to him for some perspective on some of the stuff. I want to have share more of his thoughts, and see if I can even work in the new year a way to get him on directly on the whole show. He very kindly offered to a guest on the show, and I think he's one of the first people I really want to take up on that invitation in the new year. I will definitely be testing the live stream setup a lot before we do that. But anyway, yeah, he also just I'll let him speak further to his thoughts on the whole thing. But yeah, to say that he expects big changes is putting it mildly, and I suspect he's very much right. Other things that were very big this year, for better or for worse, and this, I think I can get this graphic to come up. I'm going to sing this guardedly. Let's see. I'm feeling... Boom. Oh, don't even. You jerk. Now, sorry, now my other monitor came up. Yeah, right now there's some kind of absolute scrambling between my image store and the second screen. Oh my goodness, this has just been the best produced show ever. All right, so let me see if I can kill the chroma entirely and make that show or not. Oh my goodness, that is too funny. So what I'm doing, if you guys can't see this, but I had chosen to play the still image from this whole thing. I'm still going to try this one more time. Come on, you jerk. No, the still image still doesn't want to come up. That is. Oh, there it goes. Jeez, Louise. Anyway, but yeah, it was playing some still image, I think, from the video monitor itself that I'm using to monitor the show. Anyway, moving on. I would say the third big news of the year, I'm going to call it the awakening of DC and Marvel. Both of them, they seem very determined this year to self-marginalize in a big way. It's really interesting to me to see how, you can start with something that seems like a really good impulse, which is like hey, a lot of characters we've had have all been like of one sort of type. Let's bring in some other types, see if they catch on with readers and so forth, or at the very least expose them to different different ways of looking at a different story or a different character or whatever else. That's all to the good if that's what you're doing. If what you're doing instead is saying, well, no, we're going to take characters you know and love and mutate them, to play some kind of identikit, paint by numbers, politically correct, foo, just to, so we can, issue press releases to a bunch of activist organizations about how super woke we are and hope to get some publicity out of that. I don't know how this helps fans of the character relate to your stories in any way. It seems like when you're in a comic company or anyone else who's feeling kind of insecure, it seems like there's a real lust to reach out to folks who aren't your fans and say, well, but you'll like us if we do this, right? And in doing so, all you really do is alienate the people who are fans of what you actually do. Marvel did this in a huge way with the most embarrassing example, which I keep on coming back to. And I think this will be the last time I beat him up for this one, but man, does he deserve it. They did a redo of the New Warriors where they had the most ludicrous cast of characters that is ever conceivable. I mean, they're like parodies upon parodies of woke comic characters. There was Snowflake and Safe Space, which were some kind of buzz-cutted, day-glow-haired, gender non-binary conforming people who were basically, I mean, this whole thing was like a troll on every politically correct thing you could ever think of. The screen graphic you're seeing on the screen right now is one of the characters, Screen Time, whose power is, as you guys know from last episode, thanks to his ingesting his dad's experimental internet gas. He's constantly plugged into the internet. But like Marvel, this thing wound up being so embarrassing that it went from being a lauded and very, very much promoted. I mean, they cut a whole series of promotional videos interviewing Daniel Kibblesmith, the writer, and feature them prominently in all kinds of social media and on the Marvel sites and so forth. I mean, this was like their big media event of the time. They went prominently from doing that. Oh, you're kidding me. They went to doing that to basically quietly saying, yeah, maybe it won't be a graphic, maybe it won't be a monthly series. Maybe it's just a graphic novel. And then the graphic novel, it was due to actually ship a couple months ago, and it just quietly disappeared. It was like, yeah, let's just quietly forget we ever thought about doing this. This is so humiliating to us. Unfortunately, DC at the same time seems like they're determined to charge right after Marvel, because I don't know, maybe somebody in Time Warner is sitting there getting jealous about all the social media attention that the New Warriors was doing. They're introducing their own, gender race swapped, gender non-conforming, non-binary versions of, this, that, and the other thing. Let's not even get going on Kid Flash and so forth, but they're doing this as some kind of alternate throwaway version of all their characters as part of a universe-wide special event. Which, look, guys, I'm all in favor of experimenting. I think that's fine. And again, I don't mind if you want to make James Bond a girl. Well, actually, I do mind if you want to make James Bond a girl, but I sure as heck don't mind if you want to introduce a really cool new girl spy. That's awesome. Hey, the more the merrier. Just don't take the characters we love and try to mutate them to something that's not that, while all the time telling the fans that you guys are horrible ists and phobes and whatever else for having ever loved it in the first place. Don't pee on your audience. It's bad business, guys. Don't do it. And your sales numbers are not encouraging. Just look, make new things. Make them with some heart. Make them because you like the character. And I really do think that this character about a Spanish kid who grows up and learns how to do whatever else and then gets a superpower because he does something else. Whatever the deal is, tell it with some heart. And if it's got an audience, it'll find an audience. But don't just mutate what you've got going on into something to please somebody who doesn't even like comics in the first place. It's never going to work. All right. Anyway, last thing I want to do is I want to sum up my take on that and just kind of give thoughts for the year ahead. Look, my take for the year ahead, from what I can tell through my incredibly cracked and phased crystal ball I'm sitting with right here on the edge of 2021, I think next year we're going to see more appeals to direct sales to consumers. I think that's inevitable. I think we've seen it since the internet certainly began, but digital comic books and things like digital comic books, digital movies, digital subscriptions of this, that, and the other thing, there's going to be a lot more talking between the companies who make your materials and straight to you without an intermediary of a comic store or a publisher in some cases. In the way, I think you're going to do a lot more of simply subscribing to services that feature the properties that you care about, and the all-you-can-eat model is going to be the dominant one going forward, at least for a while. I think there's going to be way less, as we call them, floppies, right? The individual 32-page comic books. I think there's going to be a lot less of these. To answer the question from earlier, are they going to become more valuable? Ironically, yes. And they won't be because they're scarce so much. It's just that what we've seen even while all these trends have been playing out in the past, the actual value of comic books has continued to go up at a pretty steep curve. And it's not just that someone's gimmicking the prices. It's not just that there's only 5 copies of something, and so the 5 people want it are bidding it to the sun. It's just I think that there's really been a very solid and steady market for people who like things in the form they're used to them, and are happy to support that in new and used things infinitely going forward. At least we haven't seen the end. I don't know that everything has an end, but we haven't seen the end of where people are interested in picking up something that looks like a comic book, and certainly recapturing parts of their own past. I was editing pictures earlier today from old DC Comics, of the 15 and 20 cent variety. And it's funny because when I was a kid, these were cheap. I mean, they were, you'd get them for 25, 50 cents down at, your local used bookstore in some back issue bin. They were nothing special. The 10 and 12 cent ones were the ones that were a little hard to find. The 15, 20 cent ones, well, they're nice and everything, but it's nothing to get excited about. Well, it's years later, right? And now people are like, man, you see the 15, 20 cent comic book, you're excited by that. But you're excited about whatever the golden age of your own life is. And so I think there's always going to be a time when someone looks at the things that are the hallmarks of being happy and really enjoying the properties that they loved, and they're going to want to recapture that in whatever form it's available in. I do think there's something kind of sterile about subscription services. I think that you're lacking the tangible object that lets me relate to the story in some kind of really tangible way. I mean, at the same time, we've got Spotify, which lets me have infinity songs. There's no end to the songs I could download over Spotify. Vinyl sales have never been higher. And this is vinyl sales for vinyl that I gotta think almost none of that vinyl ever has a needle touch it, or if it does, it gets touched once. The same people who will clutch onto their copy of Exile on Main Street, in vinyl form and proudly put it up on their wall or file it, put it in a plastic sleeve and put it in their collection and just cherish that thing, are also the same guys who are going to listen to, if they listen to it at all, are going to listen to it in digital form or stream it. So there's a connection we've got to art, and there's a connection we've got to nostalgia and just all the things that make us feel kind of alive, that there is I think a necessary physical component to it. And I do think that kind of like these fragile little floppies, I think they will be cherished because they're fragile. You relate to them in a way you don't relate to slabbed comics, for instance. You don't, in a way you don't relate to, say, the paperback novel, or the graphic, the trade paperback. So, yeah, I think you'll see both trends at once, and they're confounding. It seems to not make any sense, except that, think about if your house was going to burn down tonight, what would you save, right? What's the very, you've got the kids are outside, you've got time to grab one thing before the house goes up. What's it going to be? For most people, it's the family photo album, or it's something that represents some part of their family history, of their history they can never get back. You're not worried about your stock portfolio. That's safely ensconced on the ethers of the internet. But and honestly, it's not going to be the most expensive piece of china in the cabinet. It's not going to be the most expensive piece of silver. It won't be anything like that. No, it's the things that are sorry, I'm searching for the word, and it's not coming to me. They're sublime. It's those are the things that we will always pay a lot of money for, and like I say, it's something about the fragility of comic books that actually adds to the sublimity. So yeah, I do think they will continue to have value, and while at the same time they'll also be sold in smaller numbers to a smaller select group of people, and the rest of us are going to have to find other things that somehow capture the magic, which is storytelling and characters and comics and whatever else. So that's my take. And again, it's through a cracked, very very hazy crystal ball. Take it for what it's worth. Anyway. Wishes for the new year, and I just want to do a quick check of the chat for before this. I'm afraid I've managed to frotz up most of my stream and everything else in terms of being able to react to it, so I do apologize for that. Let's see if I can get H2R back up here again. Okay, yes, good. Let's see. The more you bug him, the sooner he'll tell you to make you go away. Oh no! What? Good grief. What is that about? Explore the subtitles. Oh, great. There's something about bugging me a lot. I'm going to have to read this afterwards. I'll probably be terrified by what you guys are talking about. Just the Spotify versus vinyls, that physical thing again. One reason I haven't switched to digital comics is just not the same experience. Yeah, I agree. To my eyes, it's the same experience, but there's something sterile about it. It's hard to relate to. Okay, so if oh hey, John entered his 50,000th comic. Hey, welcome to the club, man. And by the way, if you after you've entered your 50,000th comic, go to here's a little pro tip. Go to File, go to Collection Statistics. I believe there's a badge you get for having logged your 50,000th comic in the collection. All right. Yes, I still remain the bug Pete strategy. I'm gonna have to read back as to what it is you want to bug me about. Good grief. All right, and I'm not sure what the rest of all that is. All right. So anyway, final thoughts. So I don't know how y'all are gonna welcome in the new year. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do exactly, but I do know something I did a couple nights ago, which was really interesting. In much the same way that you can kind of get a unique perspective on just life as a human being by playing The Sims, which, by the way, if you haven't done it yet, it's almost like a dollhouse game. You manage basically just life for a bunch of people walking around, the relationships with neighbors, whatever else. But it's funny because it's a fairly simple modeling system. Again, it's almost like playing with a dollhouse, but you notice certain weird things about just their behavior as things where, like, as soon as you see it in them, you wind up being able to see it in real people. Like, for instance, one of them is if they're unhappy enough that they can't do anything, they'll literally wander around in a circle and pee themselves. I mean, they will do nothing at all, just feel miserable. And it's like, wow, as soon as you see that, it's like, and you realize, well, what am I going to do to, like, jolly my sim out of this one? He's got enough food, he's got enough whatever else. And it turns out you need to give him enough fun, or it just doesn't, his life doesn't work. Everything about him is awful. His friends will shun him, and again, he'll wet himself in the middle of the kitchen because he doesn't have the energy to get up and go to the bathroom. It's funny because it's a ingenious little bit of modeling of humanity that Will Wright for The Sims did when he did things like that. But it's if you've never done it before, I highly recommend. Yeah, boot up The Sims at some point. Play it for 3 hours, and just have fun with it. But then just reflect back and say, and how much of this thing is kind of like putting a little bit of a lens on something that we all do as people that you hadn't really realized we did. Well, one thing about that is I went back because someone recommended it to my wife, and we watched the MTV Rocket New Year's Eve Ball, 1982 to 1983. So 82 going into 83. And for me, look, this was junior year in high school. This was, back when MTV played videos. It was fun. It was rock and roll. There were a whole bunch of rock stars now, frankly, acting like the rock stars that you know of age, where they're like, yeah, I've been drinking since like 8 o'clock this morning, and I really half in the bag, but yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody. It's going to be great and rock and roll, And they're absolutely not self-conscious, and it's funny because they'll be talking about their new projects, and you've got the ability as a time traveler from the year 2020 to look back and say, like, yeah, I've got a new album coming out there, I'm really excited about it. And you're thinking, yep, it's gonna bomb, you're gonna lose your label contract, or not, or that'll be the one that breaks you through into the mainstream, or whatever the thing is. But it's wonderful watching these guys like in their prime, in their 20s, being utterly unself-conscious. And just going out there and saying, yeah, I'm just going to live my life. And they don't, again, they're being rock and rollers, right? Which was a cool thing. And there wasn't a whole bunch of ninnies wandering around saying like, oh, how dare you be imbibing, you're thinking about example for children. And they're like, I'm a rock and roller. Yeah, they don't care. And it's lovely being around a whole bunch of people who just don't care that much about your opinion of them. It's wonderful. And it's something I haven't seen in so many years. It's just kind of wonderful. I get the same opinion watching this as I get from watching, playing The Sims. It's like, that's that thing that's missing from modern life that I really, really miss, which really brought a lot of joy to my life, is having people in it who just didn't care and just went out and did wild gonzo things and had a real lot of fun doing it. Like they say, dance like nobody's watching, but it's like, party like nobody is going to judge you the next morning. Go out and do gonzo stuff that just it's awesome, it's crazy, it's wild. You may fall flat on your damn face, but at the very least you'll have a wild time doing it, and you'll get to see, if you get to live life. Look, the thing I hate most about this year has been how often it's forced us into a position of passivity. There's been so much of this year, starting in really about March, where everyone's say, hey, whatever plans you had going on, hold off. Everyone's gonna hunker inside. We gotta flatten the curve. We gotta do whatever the thing is. But whatever it is, you're not gonna do that thing you wanted to do. And I think one of the better things I did early on is I very much resolved to my team, hey guys, because I thought, look, we're the lucky ones. We actually live indoors anyway. Everyone else is going to be sitting there really hurting, and let's us use this time to really buckle down and produce something cool. And also be nice to people on phones and do things like that, because there's going to be a lot of people who are just stressed out beyond words because they're losing big parts of their livelihoods. They're losing their identity. They're hunkered down with people in an unfamiliar situation. We're the geeks who normally work at home, so we should be the ones who should be extra cool. But I do like, look, I like that we appreciated at least that we had the benefit of position on that one, where it wasn't going to beat us up as much as it was going to beat up someone who played guitar in a band this year. Because I mean, good lord, if you're a musician this year, you're a host. Anyway, but back to us computer geeks, it's like, look, we did the best we could, try to make a difference this year, and I think that was the right message. It really comes down to there's a lot of things this year that have had people who supposedly are in the know have said, look, no, you have to sit there and just stand by, wait for us to save you from this thing, wait until this mandate for this thing is done, wait till this lockdown is over, wait till you get a vaccine, wait till you do whatever else. And some of the stuff makes complete sense on some level. It's like, hey, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get grandma sick, I don't want to do whatever else. But then it's like it becomes this kind of unipolar thinking, or really unifactor thinking, where it's like everyone now has become convinced that the worst thing that can ever happen in life is that this big bad bites us, and then, oh my God, what'll happen? But in the meantime, we're not realizing that so much of our life is being sucked away minute by minute as we try to cope with it. neither analysis is correct. You can't say it's all one thing or it's all the other. That's not a correct thing. You have to realize that a lot of our lives is just it's going out there and living it, and we do take risks as we live life. And sometimes people take risks, or even people who don't take risks, bad things are going to happen to them. You can make certain things less likely by really being safe on the whole thing, but if you never live your life, you will be miserable. And I think honestly, what happened, look, I could be wrong about this particular case. Certainly, I'm saying this with the benefit of a couple days news, but I'm guessing the dude who blew himself up in Nashville on Christmas Eve just said, "Look, I've had it," and he decided when he's alone and life is making him lonely, he can always go downtown, and he was going to make someone notice he was there. And the only way he could figure out how to do that one was to put a big hole in the side of the laser tag building. Anyway, look, guys, we don't want to get there, but we also just in our own lives got to realize we can't be happy if we're in a position where we're waiting for somebody else's permission to live our life. Everything we do every day, we've got to go out and make our tomorrow. We can't, I'm trying to resist the temptation of saying, hey, can't wait till 2020 is over because 2021 will be better. Well, maybe 2021 will be better, but damn it, I still had a couple days of 2020 left, and I've never had a point in my life where I felt like I had so much time laying around that I could afford to waste one day of it waiting for it to get better. I've stupidly tried this for a couple days or weeks in my life, and it's been miserable. We've all got to go out there and just make the best damn day we can on a day-to-day basis, regardless of whatever headwinds the world's throwing at us. Whether whether we like what the political situation is, whether people are making us miserable with this, that, or the other thing, whether there's a war on, whether there's a pandemic on, whatever else. We only have so many days on this planet. We've got to make the best of them. That's my take. Look, I actually got really hopeful looking back at the New Year's Eve 1982 to 83 MTV thing. There was a bunch of stupid jerk, rock and roll, party guys sitting there and not knowing what the future looked like, who were just out there living their life. And I'm not going to say they were paragons of virtue or morality or anything else like that, but damn, it was nice seeing them live life. And I want to be more like that this year. More importantly, look, because I'm not a rock and roller. I am one of those guys who actually would have stayed home and not drank too much and whatever else, and done all the proper things. Where I draw my inspiration from, in particular, tends to be tech. And I'm thinking about a guy I'm fortunate enough to know, a guy named Alan Kay, who invented Smalltalk and was a pioneer of what they call object-oriented programming. And one of the sayings he's famous for is the best way to to predict the future is to create it. And damn if that isn't true. If we want to have a good year next year, it's up to us. We got to build it. It's we can't just hope it gets better. I mean, there's gonna be good weather and bad weather. There's gonna be good prevailing winds of fortune and time and things like that, and bad ones. But every single day, our biggest obstacle is typically ourselves. It's we have to do something ourselves that make the day something mean something, and that's the struggle. That's what I'm going to be working on for next year. I'm going to try to make an awesome future by creating it every day, and I wish you all the same. I hope everyone gets to make something awesome out of this year, regardless of how crap it otherwise is. I hope it's a good one, honestly. But even though you can have headwinds or tailwinds, I think it's up to us to make it special. So, guys, Happy New Year. Happy end of 2020, and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next year. Take care. Bye-bye.